Hey everyone, it's day 23. I have completed a successful ruins rush, built a small base that I'm still working on but will already sustain me through winter. Most important of all, I have completely tamed a poison birchnut tree. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well that's pretty impressive. You did all that while playing as the worst character in the game. And if that's really what you're thinking, then you can go ahead and click on another video right now because your kind aren't welcome here. To everyone else though, I'm certain that I can replicate this with any other character, and hopefully after this video, you'll be able to do the same. Why? Because in this video, I'm going to go over how to actually tame a tree monster. For our audience members who are newer to the game, the tree monster that we're taming today is called a poison birchnut tree. A poison birchnut tree spawns when you cut down a fully grown birchnut tree that has leaves. If the tree has lost its leaves like it does during winter, then there is no chance of a poison birchnut spawning. When you cut down a fully grown birchnut tree, there is a chance that any nearby birchnut trees will transform into a poison birchnut. The probability of this happening is dependent on how many days have passed in the world and what season it is in. Once a birchnut tree becomes a poison birchnut, it will grow in size, change color, grow a huge eyeball and mouth, and start relentlessly attacking you with both its roots and its little minions called birchnutters. It's a very unique enemy as it doesn't have any HP and can't be hurt by normal attacks. In order to beat it, you have to chop it down or burn it. So if one spawns, you either chop it down somehow, burn it, or wait for it to turn back into a normal tree again. In my experience, this usually takes about 3/4 of a day. So now that we got the boring part out of the way, let's talk about how we go about taming one. Typically when you want to tame something in this game, you have to feed it and take care of it. For example, with beefalo, you want to feed it, ride it, brush it, and never ever attack it, because attacking it will greatly reduce domestication. When it comes to taming a poison birchnut, it's the exact opposite. Instead of feeding it or taking care of it, you want to beat it into submission. And by beat it into submission, I mean light him on fire over and over and over again. Now you don't want to burn it to death, you just want to induce enormous amounts of mental trauma. Now how do you go about doing that? You use both a fire staff and an ice flingomatic. Make sure the poison birchnut tree is within range of the ice flingo and set it on fire with the fire staff. Note that the flingo will not target the burning tree because it considers the tree an enemy. So you need to make sure there are flammable objects around the tree that will start to smolder when the tree catches on fire. You're using the fire staff because it allows you to light the tree on fire at range. Therefore you can easily dodge the roots, and it's a lot easier to dodge the birchnutters. I recommend using a boat. If you leave a gap, birchnutters can't get onto the boat, so you'll only have to worry about the roots, which interestingly can travel through the ocean. I would also place the flingo onto the boat so you can move it around in case a poison birchnut spawns outside of its range. So you just keep lighting it on fire, the flingo will put the fire out, at which point you light it on fire again. It doesn't work all the time, but if you do it enough, eventually you will beat the tree into submission enough that it will both stop attacking you with its roots and stop spawning birchnutters. Congratulations, you have fully tamed a poison birchnut tree. Once fully tamed, you will have one of 3 different types of poison birchnut trees. The most common is the Watcher. It will just sit there looking at you with its big ol' eye. This one is my favorite, and you'll understand why after you see the other 2. The second is the Growler. It will continuously growl non-stop. You might think this is cooler than the Watcher at first, but after hearing it growl constantly for several minutes straight, you're going to be tempted to turn your pet into a bunch of living logs. The last type is the Fallen, and it's the rarest of the 3. It will behave like either a Watcher or a Growler, except it doesn't have any leaves. It's cool and all, but a mouth made of nothing looks ridiculous in my opinion. Anyway, that's pretty much how to tame a poison birchnut. If you move far enough away from the tree to the point that it unloads, unfortunately it will revert back into a normal tree. The same is true if you enter a cave. However, although we are done talking about how to tame a tree monster, that's only the first half of the video. As the more adept players have obviously noticed by now, repeatedly setting a poison birchnut tree on fire can be a pretty awesome farm for twigs and birchnuts. So let's talk about that. One of the ways poison birchnut trees attack you is by spawning birchnutters. They will usually spawn 2 or 3 every 10 to 20 seconds, and when killed, each birchnutter will either drop a twig or a birchnut. You can get an okay amount of twigs and birchnuts this way. Maybe you can automate it a little by putting bunnymen or a couple of nurse spiders and spitters in the area, however it's nothing special. On the other hand, when you set a poison birchnut tree on fire, the tree will think it's about to die, so it spawns a large wave of birchnutters as sort of its last-ditch effort to kill you. Using the how to tame a tree monster strategy, the tree doesn't burn to death, instead it gets put out by the ice flingo. After it gets put out, if you light it on fire again, the tree will once again think it's going to die, and will spawn another large wave of birchnutters to attack you. Since you're rapidly lighting the tree on fire and putting it out, you end up forcing it to spawn waves upon waves of birchnutters in a matter of seconds. If you're playing as Wendy, all you need to do is set Abigail to aggressive. While you concentrate on lighting up the tree and avoiding the roots, Abigail will kill all the birchnutters. Since the birchnutters only have 50 HP, only deal 5 damage, and will constantly be either taking fire damage or frozen by the flingo, Abigail can usually farm them indefinitely without any potions.
The trees won't even target Abigail, and her shield limits the amount of time she can be attacked, so she'll be fine. You don't need to be Wendy though. The obvious other option is to use Vinona's catapults.
Since Birchnutters only have 50 HP and each catapult deals 42.5 area of effect damage, I would recommend just using 2 in order to limit the resources and space required.
Unlike Abigail, the trees will target the catapults, so it's important that you position them so that they are just outside of the root attack range. Probably the most efficient way of doing this is with Wes and catapults. When Wes uses a tool like a pickaxe, axe, or even a fire staff, he uses up less of the item's durability than a normal character. This means instead of being able to use each fire staff 20 times, it's more like 27 for Wes, which translates to less red gems and nightmare fuel, as those are the ingredients for the staff. Shout out to Third Porcus and Guile for finding this out and explaining it in their video titled Wes Hidden Durability Changes, Ice and Fire Staff, Axe. Link in the description. By the time the tree either becomes tame or transforms back into a normal tree, you'll have killed so many birchnighters that the entire ground will be saturated with twigs and birch nuts. After a little over half a day of killing birchnutters, you can expect to walk away with around 200 birch nuts and 300 twigs, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. Just cooking the birch nuts will produce enough food for a normal survivor to live for 27 game days. Combine the birch nuts with those twigs and berries, and you can make enough trail mix to heal 6,000 points of health, 24,000 if you're using them to heal your beefalo. Speaking of beefalo, 300 twigs is enough to allow you to ride your beefalo constantly for 30 days. In other words, it's way more than you'll need in order to fully tame a beefalo from scratch. As a matter of fact, if you were to do this twice, you'll pretty much have enough twigs to fully tame a beefalo the old-fashioned way, by keeping its hunger above 0 at all time. So in my opinion, it's a pretty awesome farm as long as you have the red gems and nightmare fuel, which are available early game in ruins/caves, and later game with hound wave attacks and varg farms. Now you might be thinking that's pretty cool, but an obvious downside to this is that it's not repeatable. After the poison birchnut turns back into a regular tree or becomes tamed, you will have to chop trees again to spawn another poison birchnut if you want to repeat this farm again. Intuitively, it may seem like it's a one-off, but I'm happy to tell you that it's not. Yep, you can repeat this method over and over and over again, every single day, using the same poison birchnut tree. How? It's very simple. After your tree becomes tamed, it'll stop producing birchnuts. What you want to do is get it to become aggressive to you again. If you're playing solo Don't Starve together, all you need to do is log off and log back in. Once you're back in, the tree will be aggressive again, so you can go right back to farming tons of birchnuts. If you're playing with others on a server, maybe a public game, all you need to do is wait for the game to save at the start of the day, wait about 30 seconds, and then call a vote to roll back. The server will roll back to the beginning of the day, and your tamed poison birchnut tree will now be aggressive again. As long as it doesn't get so far off screen that it gets unloaded, your tamed poison birchnut tree will be with you forever. Therefore, you can even farm tons of twigs and birchnuts during winter, making it, to my knowledge, the only method of obtaining birchnuts during winter. And that is how you actually tame a tree monster, and how to get insane amounts of twigs and birchnuts at any time of the year.
One final thing I wanted to say before we go. In reality, inflicting psychological trauma on the tree by lighting it on fire again and again isn't really how you tame it. That's how I initially discovered that you could tame it, but really the only reason I said that was to try and explain how to tame it while not breaking the immersion of the game. In reality, it's obviously a bug. You're not supposed to be able to tame a poison birchnut, and here's how to really go about taming it. If you don't kill it by chopping it or letting it completely burn up, the tree will revert into a normal tree after about 3/4 of a game day. I believe that once it spawns into the world, a poison birchnut tree has a set timer to which it will revert into a normal one. In order to tame it, you just need to make sure that it is on fire when this timer hits 0. When the timer hits 0, the tree behaves like a normal tree and stops trying to kill you. However, its appearance doesn't change. So in reality, you could tame one by simply using a torch and a water balloon, or an ice staff, as long as you make sure that it's burning when it's supposed to turn back into a normal tree. So yeah, you could say that's how you actually tame a tree monster. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching.
If you like weird, obscure trick videos like these, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Comment to let me know what you think. Take care everybody and have a great day.